All right, welcome to the Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, so if you're dialing in on a phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. We don't have to do a call to order, everyone's here. So we're going to start with 2527 Biviano General Contracting. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 and 305-1302 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise the existing structure and construct a new 28-foot 2 by 40-foot 2 and 1/2 story dwelling and a 28-foot 2 by 16-foot deck on property located at 26 Meadow Lane, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel 115-20-02. It's located in the R3 zoning district in the coastal wetlands district. Petitioner requests to continue to June 10th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And now we're going to take care of 2524 William and Michelle Keys, 83 Ashburton Avenue. They're asking to withdraw without prejudice. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
All right, so now we have 2528 George Holdings LLC. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1103, 305-1301, C1, and 305-1301, C2 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for an amount of fill equivalent to 500 cubic yards or more and 10,000 square feet of land disturbance associated with the construction of a new single-family dwelling and access within the inland wetlands district on the property located at Texas Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel I-11-2409, and is located in the R2 zoning and inland wetlands district. Name and address for the record.
Sure. Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, representing the applicant Zorge Holdings LLC. As was just read into the record, we're here for special permits in accordance with section 11.03, as well as section 13.01, C1 and C2, which is the Inland Wetlands Protection District. The previous mentioned 11.03 is for fill in excess of 500 cubic yards or land disturbance in excess of 10,000 square feet. The existing site is a previously undeveloped piece of property. It's been determined to be a residential lot of record by town council. It was laid out on a subdivision plan in 1920. It's off of Texas Street. It's identified on the assessor's maps as I-11-2409. It's 12,000 square feet of size. It's entirely upland land area. It has approximately 120 feet of frontage on Texas Street. Texas Street is unconstructed at this portion of Texas Street, with the exception of there's an existing utility pole and overhead wires to that pole within the street layout. There's no FEMA floodplain on the site. There's no endangered species habitat. It's not identified as an area of critical environmental concern. We've been out to the site, we've surveyed it. What you see on the plan highlighted in blue, kind of at the top left corner, is a wetland that was delineated by Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration. Mr. Holmes is a professional wetland scientist registered nationally. He holds a Master's of Science in Engineering, Environmental Engineering. Soils at the site, we've gone out, in addition to surveying the property and identifying those wetlands, we've conducted soils testing at the site. Myself, I'm a registered engineer. I'm also a Massachusetts DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, certified soil evaluator, and have been for 20 years. We found suitable soils at the site for construction of drainage systems and septic systems. We conducted 6 test pits that were witnessed by the Board of Health. They were all almost pure sand. They all had less than 2 minute an inch perk rates. There was another set of soil testing done in 2004 by a similar registered engineer, Joe Webby, who is also a certified soil evaluator. He had 2 passing perk tests on the site at less than 2 minutes per inch, both witnessed again by the Board of Health. The zoning at this property is in the R2 zoning district. It's also bisected by the Inland Wetlands Protection District. On the plan that you see on the screen, approximately the front third or the front half of the site is the limit of that Inland Wetlands District, right where the cursor is, and it goes up toward the top of the screen from there. You'll see that we've largely located the house outside of that district, but the construction of Texas Street is within it, the driveway for the home is within it, and some of the grading around the house is within it. The bylaw spells out the construction criteria within that district, and the planning board outlines the criteria for the construction of Texas Street to provide suitable access to a residential lot of record. To provide the suitable access, that portion is approximately 175 feet of length, and it would be a 20-foot wide piece of pavement on Texas Street to provide access. That's the minimum acceptable for a street improvement plan. That street improvement provides access only to this one single-family home. We're not proposing any further development, and I don't see potential for any further development down Texas Street, as almost all the land beyond this is owned by the town of Marshfield. The site itself has a total fill, approximately 1,150 cubic yards. 500 cubic yards of that is associated with the road, 600 cubic yards associated with the lot. The total land disturbance is in excess of 10,000 square feet. It's approximately 17,000 square feet. The special permit criteria listed for the Inland Wetlands District, if the home is to be constructed within it, which again, a portion of it is, essentially has 6 items which I feel we comply with. The property is serviced by municipal water. We have a minimum of 6 soil test pits. In this case, we have 8 soil test pits on the site. The floor level for the living space is greater than 4 feet above the groundwater table. The septic systems here have perk tests that were conducted during the wettest times of year, which is April and March, and that is the requirement in the bylaw. The septic is 4 feet above the groundwater table. That's just a general Title V requirement anyways, and we felt that it complied with all other applicable regulations that the town of Marshfield had. We've submitted this to the Conservation Commission. They are going to conduct a site visit and do a review of the wetland boundary. We've submitted this to the Board of Health. The Board of Health has reviewed the septic, made a recommendation to add some spot grades along the southern lot line, which we did last week. And an additional comment that we had received, and we revised the plan, was to add a culvert under the driveway, as there is an isolated area that does flood that we wanted to provide relief to. I've seen some of the letters submitted by the abutters for the project. I see that they're generally in opposition to the site. I think the underlying comments in those letters are that these people have flooding issues in the Kent Park neighborhood. That's obviously not a result of the construction of this lot. They have existing conditions down there. Their basements have sump pumps. They get water. They get potholes on the street. This here would not exacerbate any of those situations because we've designed a drainage system specifically to handle the road. We've designed the lot to maintain grading and maintain drainage essentially on the lot itself and not direct it to any of the abutters. Overall, we feel that the project meets the special permit criteria for the Inland Wetlands Protection District. It does not create any new problems or exacerbate any existing problems down there, and it provides safe vehicular and pedestrian access to this residential lot of record. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Andrew, do you have anything to add?
I don't have any results.
No, Greg pretty much got everything covered under this one. It is a residential lot of record. We checked on that. The Inland Wetlands District boundary is based off of the updated soil maps that we have, so that mapping is all correct. Yeah, they're going through, the Board of Health and Conservation Commission and Planning Board to do that, and this is one of the steps.
Thank you. Bob, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add other than my memo that I already wrote.
Okay.
Greg, we got a letter from your abutter at 36 Washington Street, Mr. Creed, and he submitted Mr. Webby's 2004 septic design plan, which noted some wetlands on site. And did Brad Holmes pick up those same wetlands? As I recall, it was from 2004.
Sure. So yes, Mr. Webby had surveyed the site and done his review back in 2004. Brad Holmes did not identify wetlands in those locations.
So where'd they go?
So there's a couple of explanations for that. One, wetlands can change over time. It's not uncommon for wetlands to expand. It's not uncommon for them to retract either. Drainage in this area has changed since 2004. There has been an additional culvert or a culvert replaced under Wellington, which is the down gradient street. That may have been a cause of some of the wetlands to retract in this case. Another explanation is that the wetland that you see there that's closest to Washington is what's referred to as an isolated wetland. The town of Marshfield Conservation Commission changed its definition of what an isolated wetland is when it revised its bylaw 5 years ago. That wetland would not meet the state's criteria as a wetland, as the state doesn't recognize an isolated vegetated wetland. Marshfield used to, and when they changed their definitions about 5 years ago, when they updated everything, we don't feel that that location right there, while it is an isolated pocket, it certainly does receive runoff and have standing water. I've seen pictures of it. It doesn't meet the criteria because it lacks the hydric soil and it lacks the vegetation. The Conservation Commission is, again, doing a site visit to confirm that. It has not been confirmed at this point, but Brad Holmes did not feel confident that that was a wetland area.
And then the other wetland area that appears to have migrated effectively south?
Yep. So the other wetland area is generally in the same location
Yeah, give
as
or
on my
take.
plan, except if you look at the kind of the chronology of the Webby plans, the first iteration of Webby's plan was close to what our wetland delineation was. And then there was a notation on this Webby plan here that the line was as reviewed by the Conservation Administrator, a man named Jay Wennemer at the time. Jay was not a professional wetland scientist as Brad Holmes is. And again, why that finger-like projection came out back in 2004 with Mr. Wennemer looking at it, I can only speculate, I don't know. But I know our scientist now didn't find one. I know the conservation agent is setting up that meeting to go out there and confirm it.
And effectively, this plan was to do what you're proposing to do, just the house is moved slightly back, the septic system moved to the side.
Yes.
But it was to develop a single-family home.
Correct. Correct.
And I'm assuming, but I will ask for the record, the driveway would be permeable, not impervious?
We have it as a paved driveway and a paved street because the street improvement requires it to be paved, and you have to provide a turnaround. So the driveway on my plan is approximately 50 feet long. The first 30 feet of that serve as the turnaround at the end of the street, so it's required to be paved, the majority of it.
I'm glad I asked. And obviously, you said you're not going to impact any abutting properties or exacerbate the existing water and flooding issues. All surface water is to be handled and managed on-site?
So the roadway itself is completely collected, it's put through a treatment system at the end of the street consisting of a catch basin and the stormwater particle separator, and then it goes to subsurface chambers under the road, and that handles 80% of the road. 20% of the road discharges to the north side of the road into a crushed stone swale with an infiltration trench under the bottom of it to promote infiltration into it.
No, it's.
And that's that box right there at the end, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board?
Now, could you give a quick definition of what a residential lot of record means?
Sure. A residential lot of record is a lot that has a grandfathered status, if you will, with respect to zoning, because it doesn't meet some criteria of today. This lot here, for example, this was laid out in 1920, which predates Marshfield's zoning. It was laid out as several smaller lots. In total, it adds up to 12,000 square feet. This area, when zoning came into effect in Marshfield, was determined to be the R2 zone, which requires 20,000 square feet. So this lot doesn't have the required land area. But if you can show that this lot predates zoning, it hasn't been held in common ownership with any of the properties adjacent to it, which it hasn't, it gets certain grandfathered status, and that's what this has. Many of the lots in that Kent Park, Silver Pines neighborhoods, get that status to become buildable.
So basically, to sum it up, it's a lot that was laid out pre-zoning, and the residential lot of record was set up to preserve people's rights for their property to be able to build on it. Zoning has changed, so zoning came into effect afterwards, and now zoning is more strict. But this lot was buildable when it was laid out pre-zoning, and it's protected.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Only question I have is on that southerly, southeasternly rear wall being 13 feet from the lot line. How is it, are you asking us to also kind of approve that?
No, so the setbacks would be the setbacks that were in effect at the time the lot was created, which
The
there were
relevant
none.
commentary.
Yeah, 0, 0, 10.
Yeah.
0, 0, 0, 10.
That's how it's interpreted. It doesn't require a variance to today's standards now.
That's crazy. Isn't it crazy?
Oh, it's just the law. So do we have anything from the audience on this?
James F. Creed Jr., 36 Washington Ave, the aforementioned abutter. My only issue with the proposal is the drainage. If you could go to the photo that is the last page of the letter I submitted to MCC, that's from April of 2024, and that's typical of about 75% of the years that I've lived there since 1991. That is about the lot line. Those two trees, the two oaks that are crossing each other to the left, that's the approximate lot line, corner lot line of the town-owned land that abuts me in the rear. So I know, Greg has represented that he's not going to cause any more trouble, but I know water when I see it. I'm no wetland scientist, and I guess this isn't a wetland anymore by the Conservation Commission's definition, but that's water. And out in the middle, that's about 12 inches deep. And that happens 75% out of every 10 years that I've lived there. So if we're going to raise the grades, then I think that any special permit should be conditioned upon resolving that issue, because raising that grade 3 feet from the corner of my property is going to mean that water from that road is, unless it's addressed and transmitted out toward the existing wetland, toward Wellington, is going to end up on me. Just this past week, now, Lake Texas, as we call it.
Which direction is Wellington? Northeast, southwest?
Wellington, if we call up the plan,
That's your lawn area, though, Jay.
that's correct, yep. If you go all the way over to the left side,
Where Texas would intersect.
Wellington and Washington are like a wishbone.
Gotcha. All right.
When you come in
That's
through
Wellington.
Kent Park Parkway, you take a left onto Washington,
trying
a
to get
right onto Wellington. So unless the water's transmitted that way from the road, there are going to be issues. And I think there are also issues, unless that potential for standing water is addressed, that could undermine the road going forward. Like I say, if those issues can be addressed, that's my only concern, is that, just this past week, I have 2 inches of water in my basement. I get that all the time. It is what it is. It's what I live with. I don't want any more. I don't need any more.
Interrupt for 1 second.
Sure, go right ahead.
Greg, seeing how you're creating an L at the back of Mr. Creed's property, and diagonally, you've got the blue line of the wetlands, could you install some sort of a culvert, a subsurface culvert, so that the ponding that takes place in the rear corner of that lot, as depicted in that photo, gets directed, if it happens, let's hope it doesn't, but if it happens, as depicted in the photo, would drain, rather than ponding, would drain toward that wetland area? Is that possible?
We've done almost exactly like that. So if you look at that, if you look at the photo, there's standing water there, no question about it. And what happens is there's an ever so slight depression there, a foot deep, 1.5 feet deep, whatever it is, but there's ever so slight of a depression. The land out back where we're proposing to build the house comes up a little bit in elevation before it dips back down to the wetland. Okay, so you have this isolated area that retains water. What we've done, if you zoomed in on my plan at the front lot line where the driveway is, go to the right just a little bit, we've proposed a 12-inch RCP culvert beneath the driveway and
What's RCP?
reinforced concrete pipe.
Oh,
And so what effectively would happen is that ponding is on the town of Marshfield property there, which it's either a 40 or 50-foot wide strip that the town of Marshfield owns between the Creed property and this property. That's where you would get isolated, standing water there. That would then flow and discharge on the other side where the wetland is, on the other side of Texas Street. So that, yeah, you will still get standing water there when the project is done, but it now has a relief point to carry it through.
does that give you any comfort?
Well, only if it works. The other issue
Water
is,
flows downhill, I know that much.
the problem I see potentially with that is if you look at the note on that plan, connect subsurface utilities to existing utility pole, I mean, that's the corner of where the water collects. That's where it tends to come onto my property. So if the culvert is down at the other side of the town of Marshfield land, that's a good 40 feet. I don't know that it's going to pick that up. The other issue is that there's subsurface utilities. I just think it's a kind of a bad idea to put electricity and water together.
It happens all the time.
Not by design typically, though.
Yeah, it does. I
City
used to
of New
clean
Orleans.
manholes in the city of Boston. You gotta pump out 8 feet of standing water before you go into the manhole to clean it.
City of New Orleans is a completely underground electric system,
Well,
and they know water.
and that's fine, but if you know you're going into water and you're going to lay the lines, probably better to put them above, because we lose power all the time in Kent Park. And we usually lose power because of trees, not because of underground subsurface utility lines. So, in any event. I mean, if it can be engineered and it can work, that's fine, but I think the special permit should be conditioned on that.
What I'm hearing, and I appreciate the photos in your testimony, is that right now it's not managed, and what the applicant proposes to do is to put in place a management system that, from his representations, will be an improvement over the existing conditions. As you say, the question is, will it work?
Right. And I suppose we'll definitively find that out at the planning board where all of these issues come to play in the street improvement process with a review by Pat Brennan.
Can it be moved over, the culvert be moved over a little bit, or?
We could certainly extend it up.
Does Marshfield want to sell you that strip of land? Either one of you?
Sell you some
What are
swamp
they
plants?
doing with it? They could use the cash.
I'm sure they
That
could.
VOTEC bill.
I could be the savior of the VOTEC.
Put your cape on.
I didn't come here for that.
Come on, we need it for the
Do it,
glam.
do it.
So will the water, it says there's a retaining wall there, will the water, if it's on that, if it's on the town land side, would it get through that retaining wall and get into your culvert?
So, yeah, the culvert basically takes water that's on the east side of that boulder wall, and it gives it that relief point, is exactly what it does.
Got it.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Now, with your fill, when you're bringing the fill in, how high are you gonna be to where Mr. Creed's lawn was? Is it gonna be pretty much level? Bringing
Sure,
up to
so,
that height?
like, the grade at the back corner of his house is at 16 and 17, based on the contours there. Over our septic system, that's the highest point on our property, we're at elevation 19. That corner of our driveway, where the driveway and the roadway intersect, that's at 16 and a half, thereabouts. Our top of foundation is proposed at 20.5, which is within a foot of the top of foundation of number 65 Arlington, which is the direct abutter to the south at the bottom of the plan. So we're almost at the exact same elevation as the neighbor, the abutting neighbor there.
So, can I ask a question about how you're going to pitch Texas Street? Is Texas Street going to be pitched toward Mr. Cohn's property so that the runoff from Texas Street goes into the stone culvert that you're proposing?
So Texas Street itself is going to have a high point at station 0 plus 50, which is where the 17, right where the cursor is there. So that from there, everything to the left pitches toward the top left corner of Texas Street. The roadway itself is super elevated.
Yep.
From one side to the other. It's not crowned, it's super elevated. So it all pitches toward the north. It has a Cape Cod berm down the side, and at the end, it's going to have actual curbing, 6-inch curbing. There's a catch basin there, which then takes that water and puts it into a particle separator, which then puts it into recharge chambers under the street. The portion of the street that's from Washington Avenue intersection to Station 50, that drains toward Washington Avenue, and then along the side of Texas Street, between the right-of-way line and the proposed pavement, we have a crushed stone infiltration trench that's pitched all the way with a pipe in it to the end of Texas Street, down adjacent to the wetlands, so that the water off that first 50 feet of street gets into that infiltration trench and then gets conveyed to that back left corner of the street improvement. Yep, right where the cursor is that stone trench. And the discharge is right where the cursor was a second ago.
So if I may, the first 50 feet, that water isn't going to come toward me, it's going to go toward that swale?
Correct, it's pitched
Okay.
to the north.
Could this be designed that everything pitches that way?
Toward Mr. Creed?
Thanks, Larry.
Everything's going in opposite directions, everything. The pitch, the lot, the whole lot, everything just going in that direction, away from Mr. Creed.
Can you do that, Greg?
Ultimately, I think you're always going to have a low point where that town of Marshfield strip of land is. If that could be filled in, theoretically, you could fill from the Creed property across this one and have a continuous grade so that water ran off and there was no isolated pocket. But that's a vegetated piece of land owned by the town of Marshfield that we're respecting with this design.
I mean, your lot completely, if you're at 17 feet there and Mr. Creed's at 16, 15 over there, Could that be lower, going this direction?
Not, no, it really couldn't, because what drives it is the elevation of the groundwater table. When we did the soil testing, you have to establish where the groundwater table is, and then from there, there has to be a separation to any drainage that you
So
do.
that's the depth you
So
need?
that's the minimum height of Texas Street that I need,
Okay.
is what it
Got
is.
it.
How is groundwater established? By modeling?
By modeling, correct. So modeling is where we excavate a test pit during the wettest time of year, March, April typically. The Board of Health comes out, a soil evaluator is out there, and we physically dig the test pit. We see where water is coming in, but we also look at the colors of the soils. And what happens over time is there's iron in the soil. That iron, when the groundwater comes up to its highest point, that iron rusts. You'd get a bathtub ring essentially in the soil. We call that redoxamorphic features or modeling. And we design everything based off of that, whether we physically see water there or not. In this case here, we had modeling typically down 24 inches, 28 inches, 28 inches. We had standing water at 46 inches, 50 inches, 56 inches on those test pits.
Do you have anything else, Jerry?
I don't.
All right. Does anyone else
Thank you.
care to speak on this?
Yes, I'd like to.
Good evening, my name is Robert Priest, I live on Texas Street.
Well, it's super relevant.
I just want to make a few general comments. I'm new to Kent Park, I've been there for a year and a half. We all know it's very low, super low. I've noticed that the water table moves a lot. There's also a saltwater creek that runs parallel to Texas Street where the waters on Upper Texas Street would drain, the rainwaters, moving towards the marsh. The tide affects that creek. And so if water wants to exit, it seems to me, and there's a tide in, then water is going to probably not move and not drain as quickly from that area. It seems to me that this is a problematic building site, and I can't see how it isn't going to displace water in a neighborhood where water is an enormous issue. I think this is going to move water around. I don't really think it's going to alleviate any water issues. And it's described as upland, but I don't know what the definition of upland is, but I think upland it's probably stretching the definition of that term.
You were at the zoning board. The Conservation Commission would define what is upland,
Okay.
what is wetland.
Okay,
I can tell you that wetlands are typically determined by two factors, either the soils, which you heard there are no wetland soils, hydric soils, and vegetation. And you heard the scientists did not find any wetland vegetation on that site that is going to be disturbed. So that's how they define it, but they do a better job at conservation issues than the zoning board. But in terms of, you say you don't know how it's defined, they will be the ones to define it, and Mr. Morse will be in front of them, and you'll have a bite at the conservation apple.
okay. Yeah, I think in general, I just wanted to sort of emphasize what we already know, and that Kent Park is very low land, okay? Where is the driveway going in? Is it going from Washington or Wellington?
Washington.
Okay. Okay, it probably couldn't go from Wellington, because Wellington that end of Texas Street does have wetlands vegetation. There's actually a pool there at that culvert,
You'd have to build a bridge.
yeah.
That's not going to happen. He's going to just come in over upland. to-
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the logical approach, yeah. All right, I just wanted to voice my concerns. about water displacement, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everything? Are you guys ready to close?
I'm good.
I am.
I'm going to move that we close 2528 Zorge Holdings LLC, Texas Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Bill Ramsey, aye.
Ryan Sullivan, aye?
Ryan Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mike Brothers, aye.
Are you ready, are we ready to decide this case tonight? Does anyone need more time? Does anyone,
I do not.
everyone good?
I'm good.
All right. Heidi?
No, that's fine.
So on the permit for Phil, I'm going to move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a permit subject to the conditions. Petitioner shall obtain building permit before any work commences. The petitioner must comply with local, state, and federal laws and regulations. The petitioner shall provide a building commissioner with a as-built prior to the issuance occupancy permit, confirming no closer than 8'3". For an amount of fill equivalent to 500 cubic yards or more than 10,000 square feet of land disturbance associated with the construction of a new single-family dwelling as shown on a site plan prepared by Morse Engineering Company Incorporated, dated April 13th, 2025. Gregory Morse, P.E., meets the permit criteria of Section 1103 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Bill Ramsey, aye.
Ryan Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mike Brothers, aye.
Now I'm gonna, on the inland wetlands special permit, I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special permit, subject to the conditions. Petitioner shall obtain a building permit before any work commences. The petitioner must comply with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations. Petitioner shall provide a building commissioner with an as-built plan prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit confirming no closer than 8'3". And based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to work and construct a new single-family dwelling and access within the inland wetlands district as shown on site plan prepared by Morse Engineering Company Incorporated, dated April 13th, 2025, Gregory Morse, P.E., meets the special criteria standard of Section 1301 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Are you putting any conditions on that?
Oh, I did.
You know, other than like what Mr. Freed said or anything?
Jay, you want to say your conditions?
Just to, you know,
Well, the only condition that I would want is that the road and the construction of the house the drainage is constructed in such a way as not to exacerbate any existing drainage problems in that area.
So Nancy, I'm adopting his language.
do we have to
So-
wait for any of these guys to be done?
No, wait.
No? No, okay.
So do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Bill Ramsey, aye.
Ryan Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mike Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have 2529, Lewis,
May and Seller.
how do you spell it?
May and Seller.
May and Seller. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise the existing structure and construct a 25-foot, 5 by 39-foot, 2.5-story dwelling with a 6-foot by 9.42-foot porch, associated stairs on the property located at 1177 Ferry Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel I-15, 1110, and is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead, name and address for the record.
Yep, I'm Dick Rockwood from Rockwood Design. I also reside at 92 Grandview Ave in town. There's an existing structure here. We're in a AE flood zone, and what we're proposing is to tear down the house, build new. It has to be on a piling foundation. It has a tight tank. It's very similar to the other 3 or 4 houses that have recently been built in the area. They're tight lots. What we're proposing to do when we rebuild this is less than the 3 feet that's required for the flood, for fire reasons. So I'm proposing to shift the house over from the 2.9 to be 3.1 at my closest point.
So you're taking a pre-existing nonconformity?
Yes.
You are reducing it?
I'm reducing it on one side, but I should say I'm increasing it. No, not, I'm reducing the nonconformity.
Yes.
Thank you. I am shifting the house over, so on the other side, I am increasing the nonconforming, but it's already pre-existing nonconforming. That Bellata case, kind of using that, the right to be able to make something non-conforming, a little more non-conforming. I'll still be at least 5 feet on that side, so that I'll be 6.1 feet is my closest on that side. So I'm just trying to adhere to the fire code.
So, yeah, so it doesn't have to
Do
be
some
fire
shifting
rated. Yeah,
with the
that
fire rating.
makes all the sense in the world.
It's a 2.5-story house, similar to the ones that are on, all on either side of it. There's actually 3 in a row that were built 5 years ago on that corner. This is the one in the middle that hadn't been touched yet, so.
I don't know when it's going to be done. What does he say?
Do you ever read that children's book, The City House and the Country House?
I missed
There was
that
the
day.
country house, and then the city
already
got
in
built
here.
all around it. They picked it up and carried it
There you
back out to
go.
the country.
It's already
Same kind of
80.
deal.
When I say these houses, I always think of Flat Stanley.
He already,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he wrote.
Like, I think it's an attractive design.
Yeah.
And it will obviously fit right in with the neighborhood.
What we try to do. We still have to go to conservation next, but, you know, it's a, we've worked out all the little conditions on the other lots and drainage and all that with conservation, so this is similar to the other ones that have been done there.
So this is the current owners that are doing this right now, right?
But
This is for sale, this property's for sale, right? So
it's the current owner,
owners
the
doing
fellow
it?
that
Okay.
bought it, I believe, almost a year ago, so he's doing that.
They'll have the new yacht club that they can go to.
There you go.
So anything else from the board?
I'm good.
Matches every other house right there.
The kitchen.
Andrew, you have anything to add?
I remember the last one.
No, this is pretty, like Dick said, it's very similar to the other ones that got done over there. He's using that Peralta standard to increase the nonconformity on one side, but also he's decreasing the other so he can get out of that kind of stricter 3 feet close, to the building line, or to the lot line. It's a more strict building code. So, yeah, everything's going to be elevated. It's taking the house out of a flood zone, so I'm all for that every single time.
Okay. Bob, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add on this.
Okay. Anything from the audience? Name and address for the record.
So, good evening, I'm Julie Cox, I'm the abutter on the side that's going to be a few feet from the new structure, so that obviously concerns me. I'd like to keep that non-conforming as non-conforming. I'd like to keep that difference. 5 feet is pretty tight. I've got stairs on that side, I've got my bedroom on that side. I mean, I'd like to, keep that as narrow as we can, this sort of moving it over on the lot. I'm also concerned about raising the elevation underneath. There have been a number of homes built recently, been allowed to kind of bump up the elevation, and that causes the river, when it floods, to rage right under the houses that are not raised up. So that's a concern as well. But this is the first I'm hearing. I didn't see any of these plans. I just wanted to come here tonight and hear about what's going to happen a few feet from my house, and now I'm even more concerned. So I'd ask you to take that into consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dave Smith, 34 Ridge Road. Is this the first hearing about this?
Yes.
Yes.
Because you all seem to be awful familiar with it. It just gives me an odd feeling about this. Anyways, that's the question. But over the last 8 years or so, all those houses have been put in there on piles. Most of them also get a dockway. And it's affecting the water flow. I mean, on any decent storm, the water comes right up the launching ramp, right across the parking lot, right at all those houses. And it goes right through into the marsh that abuts Keene Road in behind there. And each one of these houses just kind of mounds their lot, and it's creating a water flow. What can we do about that? Is that a conservation issue?
I believe so. Andrew, would you like to speak to any of that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is it's actually very similar to what we had in the earlier hearing. It's actually a water table issue. So all these properties are on septic system. So they have to get the tight tank in at a certain height. Otherwise, they have to do kind of like what this house did was they kind of created like a whole wall, and theirs is an elevated septic system. So they elevated their whole thing on fill. These ones all have tight tanks. You know, there's a slight mound over that, and yeah, they all kind of add, you know, stuff over time to all of their lots in the rear and in the front, and that all, you know, happens. But the other thing is they're all open foundations, so where they were solid structures before, now they're open foundations. So, you know, there's a kind of a give and take in that, but the actual elevation for the front of these lots, right, when they come off the street, is set by the Board of Health and where they need the top of the tight tank set. So that generally drives the whole elevation for all of that, and then they pitch back and around from that area.
So actually, Andrew, drainage is improved by elevating the structures onto pilings versus the homes being on a cinder block or a concrete foundation. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that just in when you're looking at it from like a flood control standpoint, when you have like a major flood, where we're talking, you know, high tide floods, king floods, minor storms, it's different, you know, and it you know, it has a lot of effects. So yes, I think that some of these minor, you know, changes and grading changes when they're working on these lots can certainly have an effect on how the water flows around on these kind of normal storms. But at the same time, you're fighting against the Atlantic Ocean ultimately when you're talking about the type of flooding that we have here. It's coming off of a tidal river directly tied to the Atlantic Ocean. So where the water goes, it's going to go, but it's not being displaced by these structures. These structures do allow it to flow through. It's just a matter of when they get up here, the water gets up to here, is it being now redirected into other parts of the neighborhood? You know, I don't think so. I think it seems to be coming kind of across here. A lot of it comes right up this property here and kind of comes down around and across these properties, including the one that's getting proposed tonight.
And do they have a floodplain permit already?
Yes, they do. They have a floodplain permit. I don't know where they're at with conservation yet. I believe they came here first.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
So I have a question. Does it affect where the marsh or the brown area is at marshland or whatever back there, that, I mean, I know my sister-in-law lives on the corner, that horrendous corner there, and the, you know, the construction that has happened over there has actually affected what goes into her yard and underneath her house as well. So is there something that people can be doing, you know, if we're redoing these and there's no house to block the water, now they're going straight into that area there, which it does go
I
into.
mean, yeah, there certainly is, I mean, and I think it's really the more appropriate place for that is actually the Conservation Commission. I mean, I know that a couple of these yards have been modified with some of this, you know, fencing and stuff like that being put in without conservation permits. Even the new house here, they did a bunch of fill here that they weren't supposed to. They had to go back and get all their permits amended. You know, and I think it's just important for when houses are proposed to be elevated on fill, where they basically create like a wall around the property and elevate the whole thing. Those are the ones that really divert the water in these neighborhoods, and when they're proposed to do that, I think that, but yeah, I think the Conservation Commission is the more appropriate board to address the impacts of storm flooding and stuff and adding fill in that regard, because the level of fill that we're proposing really is just to whatever it takes to knock the foundation down and fill it to make it even with grade. That's what the building permit requirement is. Any additional fill or contouring that they do with the property is really up to the Conservation Commission, because they're not proposing to add any more fill, you know, like 500 cubic yards that would, you know, require us to have any kind of special permit impact.
So to be clear, Andrew, what's in front of us tonight at the Zoning Board of Appeals is the footprint in the raising and reconstructing of the existing non-conforming house on the non-conforming lot, not filling in the land, not putting in the tight tank.
That's correct.
Thank you.
One more question, and I'll leave you be.
Go ahead.
About 9 years ago, I redid my home on Ridge Road. I've had it since the 50s. And I went through all this nice process, and I had to have a 30-foot setback on my side yard. My neighbor and I don't get along. I can't even put my own boat in my own yard without being in violation of the setback rules. And I only have like a 22-foot runabout boat, okay? So I had to have the 20 feet on one side, 30 feet on another side. That was a corner lot, and I have another 20 feet setback from there, okay? That's a pretty damn tight build.
Can I
I mean,
ask, you're in the R3 zone, you had the setback as,
15.
your setbacks were at 20 feet?
20 feet?
Was
on
there a
two-
reason?
On two sides, and 30 feet because of the,
Well, 30 feet's the rear setback, but your side setback should be 15 feet.
that's,
You're in the R3 zone.
that's,
You approved.
Are you talking about the setback for your boat or the setback for your house?
my house. And I had to get, to even add decks after the fact, I had to come get amended permits. I've been through all the permitting with you, with the town. So I just, that's a really tight build. That's all I'm saying.
What's he supposed to do? What would you suggest he do?
I
It's his
don't
house,
know.
he wants to renovate.
It's not what I propose he do. It's I propose what you do. Do you let him do this? You know,
Sad, it's somebody's home that they need to renovate, that they're gonna renovate. It's existing.
is he
It's not like
going to
they're
live there, or is he going to build this and sell it to somebody else?
I'm sorry?
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant? Okay. Well, then-
Absolutely. It's irrelevant what a property owner wants to do within the law with his property. This board can't say you can't get the relief and then not sell your house. Are you proposing that this board have that kind of authority to restrict the transfer of land?
No. I
Okay,
would-
good, because then we'd be living in Russia. So what's in front of us tonight? He's got a pre-existing non-conforming structure on a pre-existing non-conforming lot. He is making the structure less non-conforming. He's pulling it back on one side. He's slightly encroaching a little bit further in the other, but it's still an improvement over what's there today. In addition to that, he's taking a non-flood compliant property and making it flood compliant. If they want to sell it 20 times after we give them that relief, that's their right here in America.
All right, no, you are correct. Like I say, it's an awful tight build. And you guys.
It is.
And you guys.
The whole neighborhood is tight.
All right, I know, I've lived there for many, many, many years. I know how tight it is.
Look at the drawing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can ask if you want to ask a question. Oh, I'm just
So
telling
I
you.
just have a question, Dick.
Yes.
So one of the properties, the abutter, if you're looking at the property to the right, is that, okay, so that's the one that you're gonna go a little bit closer.
Yes. And that house is also 5 feet from its property line.
Right, fine, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
On the other side, there doesn't seem to be any windows on that side. Is there any way, like, on the other person's property on the left side? On the right side
Yeah.
is where you're going closer, right?
Right, right.
Is there, so there's nothing we can
And
do to revert?
I'd have to even look at what we have on our side.
Do you know what I'm
I
saying?
believe that
Like,
might be the stair
There's
side.
no windows, not anything there. Can you flip it? I mean, I don't mean to, I'm not a builder, so I'm just asking, just
I-
because you're not gonna be near anybody's windows or anything on that side. But on this side, I mean, someone's stairs and then their bedroom and whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
have
putting
no
it out
idea.
there
I'd have
because
to-
it
I'd
came
have to
to our
look at that.
attention.
It was done some time ago.
It's good thinking.
Actually, that's the stair side, the right elevation. Let me see.
So if you're looking, is this the tier, this picture that I have?
Right elevation. Yeah, so that's pretty, the majority of that is the stair side. There's a couple of windows down here on the living room side, and then there's some dormers, small dormers on the third floor. But, you know, it's not all glass, let's say. And even the back portion, there's no windows at all.
Okay, so I guess I'm
On-
just asking, because
that
you're
is the
looking
right
at.
side.
Right, so this side here.
Yes.
Right, that's the name, that's getting
That's
closer.
this side that would be facing that house.
It's getting closer, right, to the property
Right,
line on that
right.
side. So I was just wondering if you could do it on the, reverse it on the other side, so that it's, because there's nothing on that side of their property already, there's no windows or
Isn't she
anything.
on the others, on the right side?
She's on this side,
Yes.
yeah. So are you, I'm
So
getting
that's the
closer.
side with the least windows.
The property.
My
Yeah, on my end,
is what
the
he's
side with the
saying,
least
that
windows is on her
What you
side.
are thinking is
Right.
already in that design. That
Right.
is where the stairs are, is on the right side
Of the property.
of the property.
So
So
there's
the
no,
least
so there's
amount
no
of,
room,
least amount of windows.
there's not as many.
Yeah, I have two sets of stairs, one coming off the back
Right,
on the right side,
Mm-hmm.
and one coming up from the street on the, see, that's kind of upside down now, so
Right.
the street is at the top,
looking at here.
right. And that tight tank, by the way, is already installed. It was installed years ago, and then someone left the project, and from what I understand from Brian Taylor, everything's still good with the Board of Health. So that's that much less disruption on the property. We worked, no one knew when they
Around all that,
when they
okay,
purchased
got
it,
it.
but we worked around it with the design.
Okay.
So, yeah, the least number of windows or viewage, it's really about looking at the marsh and looking towards the street.
Right, I can just.
And
see
even some
how-
of those in the living room, I can ask them to make them like awning windows up high.
Right, I mean, I can
Yeah,
just see. like,
and simplify it, I understand that.
It's
so.
very close down there.
Yeah.
It's- I mean, I have an objection to all that
Yeah.
being so close anyways, but.
Any other questions? I'm good. I'm going to move that we close 2529 Lewis Mansella,
Yep.
1177 Ferry Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And I'm going to move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special permit, subject to the conditions. Petitioner shall obtain a building permit before any work commences. Petitioner must comply with all local, state, and federal and regulation, namely Board of Health, Concom. Petitioner shall provide the building commissioner with an as-built plan prior to issuance of an occupancy permit. Based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to raise the existing structure and construct a new 25-foot 5 by 39-foot 2.5-story dwelling with a 6-foot by 9.42-foot porch and associated stairs on the property located at 1177 Ferry Street, as shown on a certified location plan by Stembeck and Taylor Incorporated, Richard Savant, PLS, dated April 11th, 2025, meets the special permit criteria in section of 1012 in the bylaw. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Penny Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have David
Vale?
Vale, 2530. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-902 and 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 5 by 21-foot addition and a 13-foot by 20-foot deck on the property located at 61 Concord Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel K120533 and is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead, name and address for the record.
I'm Dick Rockwood from Rockwood Design. This is Carly Tobias.
From Rockwood Design.
Yep.
Hi, guys.
Eddie?
You want to explain?
Where's the
Just go. So we have an existing structure here. It's a 2.5-story house. And we're proposing to add to the rear of the house 5.5 feet by 21 feet as a 2-story addition, mainly to incorporate an elevator and just a little more elbow room to egress through from the kitchen out to the porch. And then, and we're adding on a deck that we're rebuilding, but we're still, I think, a proper distance from the rear on that deck.
It's 24
Yeah.
feet, 8 inches.
Yeah. So, and that deck is less than 4 feet above the ground. Yes.
Yes, it is.
So it's the house is on wood pilings right now. The addition will be on either pilings or helicals. And just, as I say, it's a 2-story addition.
Any questions from the board?
Very nice.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a very attractive
Nice looking building.
house.
Any, Andrew, you have anything to add, or?
Nope, this is a elevated house, already elevated on piles. It's just an expansion, and, yeah, I can certify that the deck is under 4 feet, so they could actually go up to 15 feet, but they're staying at least 10 feet away from that shed and complying with the other setback requirements there, so.
And do they have a floodplain permit? Do they need one?
They certainly do, they've had one for a while here.
All right, awesome. Bob, you have anything to add other than your notes?
Nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Anything from the audience on this? Seeing that there's none, I'm going to move that we close 2530 David Vale, 61 Concord Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Penny Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
All right, I'm going to move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special permit, subject to the conditions. The petitioner shall obtain a building permit before any work commences. The petitioner must comply with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations, namely Concom. The petitioner shall provide the building commissioner with an as-built plan prior to issuance of occupancy permit. Based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to construct a 5.5 by 21-foot addition on and a 13-foot by 20-foot deck on the property located at 61 Concord Street, which is located on the inland side of Standish Street, as shown on progress set of plans by Rockwood Design dated 4/17/25, and a certified location plan by Stembeck and Taylor Incorporated, Richard Savant, PLS, dated April 21st, 2025, meets the special permit criteria of section 1012 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Barbara Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Ryan Murphy, aye?
Heidi Solomon, aye?
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Oh, that's all right, whatever it is. It's on the drawing.
Thank you. So now we have 2531, Kevin McKenna and Heather Connell.
I didn't know you were saying that.
Petitioners are seeking a variance in accordance with 305-1011 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for relief from 305-601, 305-607 to allow a bulkhead that was not able to be placed at the rear of the addition due to the location of the leaching field and a sharp drop in grade on the property located at 66 Grandview Ave, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel H161201A and located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead.
I'm Dick Rockwood. I did the architectural work for the McKennas, and we did a one-story addition here, and when we were doing the bulkhead, they had asked if they, if instead of that standard metal sloped bulkhead, if we could have a door to walk in, and I said, not a problem, not realizing I was overstepping my bounds. There's also my neighbor, I live next door, and kind of
Can't do much
help them
about
with the
that.
project. So after 40 years of, I think, pretty flawless, and I don't take it lightly, but, yeah, the architect kind of messed up here.
Yeah, we've had this before.
We've had some discussions, whether it was allowed, but I didn't get the information that, that I couldn't do it till after it was built. And it's very attractive, though. I think you have some photos of it. And Heather McConnell is here, the owner. And her dad has some handicap issues, and they're preparing for him to eventually, settle into the house. He actually lives in Florida, still has a house in Marshfield, and they're starting to just bring some furnishings and clear out the house. So he wants to be able to go down those stairs and tinker with his belongings. It's not a living space. And that was my issue when I was putting it on. It wasn't part of the upstairs. I wasn't thinking that the roof would cause an issue zoning-wise, because it was just an access to a basement that really doesn't have windows. It's not a living space down there. So I wish the board would, consider allowing that variance. We realized by the variance, that means we would never use that as our footprint to justify any other construction or anything like that. We
Well,
would certainly not.
You can. You can. It adds to the footprint of the structure.
I thought by variance, it didn't allow me to have the right to have that.
Well, the variance is the encroachment into the setback.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose we could condition the variance, or the board could. I'm opposed to it, to be upfront.
Oh,
I'm trying to be consistent, if
Yeah.
nothing else. But the idea that you don't want to grant variances is that they're permanent, and the encroachment is permanent. And again, if the board chooses to grant the variance and conditions it that it's only for basement access, that's up to the board. But the fear is that once you start permitting variances for encroachments, it's a slippery slope from which there is no recovery. And I try and be consistent in being opposed to virtually all variances, because virtually no one meets the standard.
right.
So, again, the hardship that you have articulated is a hardship to the property owner, not to the lot. There's nothing unique about this lot that does not affect other homes in the district. Yes, there's a front-to-back slope, which you're going to get on a hill, but it's not the only lot on the street that has that front-to-back slope. There's nothing unique about the lot in terms of its geology or geography. And there are other lots in Marshfield that have similar trapezoidal shapes. So, again, I'm only saying this to be consistent. It's nothing personal to your clients or to you. And a compelling story, certainly, but it doesn't persuade me, for one.
It's interesting, because I've had other projects in the past where if something was there by a variance, my understanding is it didn't give me a right as a special permit, like the house we just did, because what was there was done by a variance for some other reason. So that was my understanding.
It was before I was on the board.
I'm not
No.
sure what that,
In other words, if something was added on as a variance, that doesn't give you the right to put a second story over it necessarily.
Add to it.
yes, you
To
can.
add to it. And
can,
that's
absolutely.
just historically on some, I mean,
I'm
that's-
just
We just
telling
had
you
a
that
variance on
one-
Foster Ave
Yeah,
that we conditioned.
we
they
can,
could not-
if it's conditioned,
They could not do a second story on that.
second story, but if
Right.
it's not conditioned, then it becomes legal
Interesting.
non-conforming after 7 years.
but we have no objection to putting that condition on it, because that, we have no
Can I ask
intentions
Bob
of
a
doing
question?
anything.
Sure.
Excuse me, Bob?
I'm here.
Thank you. Am I correct in that permitting a variance for a foundation, even if it's just for a bulkhead, increases the footprint of the structure to which a 2.5-story addition could be added at some point in the future?
Yeah, you're changing the extent of the encroachment, and that does have some binding impact. A variance is permanent. Once you allow somebody to get that close to the lot line, something could hypothetically be added.
And
But,
Bob, could the board, should the voting members determine to grant the relief sought, could the board condition that relief that it only be for basement access and cannot be developed above the edge of the top of the concrete?
The simple answer is, yes, they could condition it that way, and if the applicant didn't appeal it, it would be binding.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, with this bulkhead, these stairs are going down to the basement, correct?
Correct.
And you're putting it in, instead of just being a steel structure on top of it, you're building.
Yeah, we built like a doghouse in the door.
Doghouse, okay.
Right.
Is there any other access or egress from this basement? If you're down there, how do you get out of there now? You gotta go through the house?
There is another set of stairs in the house.
In the house?
Yes.
But there's no way to get out of the basement without going back into the house, correct, at this point?
The bulkhead, this new bulkhead, or the set of stairs that go up to
There's
the...
only one direct external egress point, and that's.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct, into the house.
There's only one.
So I'd look at this as an existing house, and if you're in the basement and there's a problem with the house, and you gotta get out of the house, that would be your egress. And if there was some type of emergency where the police or fire had to get into the basement, that would also be their access in or out. The house is already there. The condition can be put in place that there'll be no expansion off of this. I believe we have letters from the only people that it's gonna see it at all. I believe we already have emails from them.
Former member Rich Murphy,
There you go.
your cousin. You guys are all related.
Yes, all the Murphys at some point. All right, do we have anything from the audience on this?
What's the,
Name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is David Kelly. I live at 46 Ashburton Avenue. And I'd just like to speak on behalf of the petitioner. I know the McKennas and the McConnells for many years, and we're not neighbors, but I know the family well, and I know that Heather's dad had a bad stroke a number of years ago, and the McKennas wanted to build this addition to allow him to move in with them. So, and I understand the concern with the precedent of granting a variance, and
There is no precedent, so you don't have to worry.
I didn't mean to say that. I understand the precedent that could be set by granting a variance. But I think in this case, it's a very minor encroachment. To change it is quite expensive and would probably be difficult for the applicant. Also, my understanding is that I have not heard from anybody opposing it as a neighbor. I do think the board could find that due to shape, soil, and topography, if they choose to, that variance could be granted, and certainly the condition seems reasonable. So, I'd ask that you support it in this case, and I understand your concern with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else from the board?
Just one question. There's 3 sides that this egress could be put on, right? There's the north side, which is now embargoed because it'd be too close to the septic. Is that right?
Right.
You're proposing the east side, which is closed. Why not the south side?
Well, it's not proposing, it's built.
It's
Oh, it's built.
This is done.
It's kinda hard
This
to
is why
move.
they're here.
No,
This is the hardship.
That is the doghouse, yeah.
This is the hardship in front of us.
Oh.
This was all my fault, because I look at as-bills a little too closely, right?
I got it. Yeah. I got it. I'm sorry. I missed that.
Got picked up on the as-built. So, any
They
other
bought me
questions?
my first notebook, so it's his fault, really.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, I drove up there, and this neighborhood has had a major expansion. The people have spent a ton of money up there. The neighborhood looks wonderful. It's already there. You know, I think the hardship on the applicant would be too much. I think it's a minor variance. To me, it would be a safety issue. He's got to get in and out of the basement. I personally think this is something that we should be in favor for. I am myself.
All right. Anything else? I'm going to move that we close 2531 Kevin McKenna and Heather McConnell, 66 Grandview Ave. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And I'm going to move that the board grant the requested variance since the applicants have demonstrated or presented information sufficient to demonstrate the entitlement to a variance under 1011 of the zoning bylaw, with the one condition that the basement access, that is all that this is able to be used for. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye. Go ahead.
I abstain.
Oh, Heidi?
Can I abstain?
Sure.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
We have in there that they can't build over anything. right?
That's what I said. Under Brian.
livable space.
The voters were everyone but Heidi and Brian. They abstained.
We're just not voting.
They
They're
abstained.
abstaining.
Oh, did you abstain too?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
You owe that poor pig
You ready?
dinner.
Yeah. It's up to you. You can go last.
Say you don't have any more? No, just 3 tonight.
Just hanging out.
Okay, now we have,
For the record, I'd like to disclose I have a conflict. I know the applicant.
We all do.
We serve
We all do.
we serve on the zoning
Me
board
too.
together. But due to the rule of necessity, I am open to allowing the applicant to present to the board and give him a fair hearing.
Ditto.
all of us agree.
Agree.
Thank you.
2532 Grover J. Hensley Jr. Petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct an enclosed three-season room on the top of an existing 12-foot by 15-foot deck at the rear of the dwelling, property located at 49 Ashburton Avenue, which is further identified on the assessor's map as being on parcel M084102, is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead.
Grover Hensley, 49 Ashburton Ave. Basically, it's very simple. I have a deck on the back of my house. I would like to do a three-season porch on top of it. My kids are getting older, and I'm running out of room inside the house. With the kind of, it's a little different down there, anyone that lives in that area or on the water. The wind is pretty extreme at times. So anything I have on that deck gets tossed off. We can't, and when there's no wind, it's extremely hot in the summer, so I'm just looking for a little relief basically on that.
I understand.
Yep, no new encroachments on anything, and it's as simple as a three-season porch. Not doing much to it.
Andrew, you have anything to add?
Nope, that's pretty straightforward. It's just converting the three-season porch, and it does meet the setback. It's just a non-conforming structure. that is getting an expansion of footprint, building area, I should say.
Thank you. Anything from the audience here? Anything from the board?
I'd just like to add quick, what Grover said earlier about his family getting bigger and expanding. We've heard that quite a bit in front of the board, that people are, their families are growing, the kids are getting bigger, and that a lot of people in our community are deciding to invest into their property than relocating. And I'm all for that type of expansion in our communities.
Thank you.
So it's a pre-existing, non-conforming structure on a pre-existing, non-conforming lot?
Yes.
You're not increasing the footprint of the structure?
No.
You're merely enclosing with a three-season porch the existing deck?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move that we close 2532 Grover J. Hensley Jr., 49 Ashburton Ave. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special permit, subject to the conditions. The petitioner shall obtain a building permit before any work commences. The petitioner must comply with all local, state, federal laws and regulations. Petitioner shall provide the building commissioner with an as-built prior to issuance of occupancy permit. Based on the finding of the applicant's proposal to construct an enclosed three-season room on top of the existing 12-foot by 15-foot deck at the rear of the dwelling on the property located at 49 Ashburton Avenue, as shown on the architectural plans, 3 pages, and as-built plan by Millbrook Survey, Tom Sullivan, PLS, dated 2/2020, meets the special permit criteria of section 1012 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So now we have Richard and Christina Mosca. Are they here, Nancy? I'll read it. Petitioner seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to rebuild an 8-foot by 18-foot breezeway, living room, and new 2-foot by 6-foot wall frame and new roof frame on the property located at 111 Edward Road, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel L052401, is located in the R3 zoning district. Is anyone here for this?
Brian, can I make a comment about this?
Yeah.
I took a look at this, I don't even see why they need a special permit. Like, it seems like they're just changing the roof line from a flat roof to this pitched roof. They're rebuilding it, but it didn't seem like they were getting it any bigger. They're just changing the pitch of the roof, but not really adding any living space, just changing the roof line.
Okay, so why don't we put this out, and then you can talk to them?
Unless Nancy knows some other information,
No, I don't have anything other than what was submitted.
Who's Todd Cleveland?
Did you talk to him? Have you talked to him, Andrew?
He's a general contractor, I didn't talk to him about this project, no. I talked to him about the one on South River Street recently that we did with him.
All right, so why don't we continue this to the next meeting, and Andrew can meet with him, so they'll still be...
Move to continue.
Second, all in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Did you?
Brian Murphy,
Oh,
aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you. What's that? The 24th, yeah. All right, so now we have H 2534, the Jetty LLC. The petitioner is seeking a site plan approval in accordance with 305-1202 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for the replacement of the existing Who's talking out there? Oh. Existing temporary Jersey barriers with a landscape island and bollards for the protection of customers.
The
Protection of customers on the patio on the property located at 278 Ocean Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcels N070134 and 070135, and is located in the B4 zoning district of the Brant Rock Village Overlay, BRVO district. Name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Richard Vaughn, owner of the jetty at 278, co-owner of the jetty at 278 Ocean Street in Grant Rock, Marshfield.
Go ahead.
All right. One of the conditions of using our outdoor patio is to provide bollards every 4 feet for the protection of our customers. For the short term, we were allowed, we made an agreement that would use DPW-approved water-filled Jersey barriers while we went through the process of permitting the bollards. The bollards require both Concom and site plan approval. In the past year, we've had a landscape architect create the following design that you're going to see. The design includes a 2,000-pound buoy, a 20 by 3 foot raised island, 3 1,200-pound planters, a 900-pound, 200-year-old anchor, and several large-scale nautical cleats, and 3 bollards. Essentially, we want to remove all the plastic bollards, all the plastic Jersey barriers with the graffiti and everything else, and make it more in keeping with the landscape that the jetty already has, which is nautical in nature with a lot of seagrass and other plants that the architect designed and handpicked.
Okay.
How much do those bollards weigh?
The bollards are the Jersey barriers.
The ones in the photo, those.
They weigh
nautical ones.
upward of 600 pounds.
Yeah.
They're big, and they're cool.
Where'd you find those?
Craigslist has pretty much anything you can imagine. And as a matter of fact, a gentleman pulled up in front of the jetty the other day with a pickup truck with a 900-pound anchor in it and said he'd sell it to me. I said, how did you know I needed a 900-pound anchor? The guy said, you look like you might. So it's an 1800s anchor from, he says it's a historical ship, but it may not be. But it's
definitely
really cool.
Yeah.
And again, if you're coming down Ocean Street, there's really no way for somebody to unintentionally enter the jetty patio. The buoy is the first thing, and unless you're coming in the opposite direction, safety is not really an issue for automobiles. But this is really beautiful and will absolutely keep anyone from ever driving a vehicle through the jetty patio.
I like your thinking, so.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board?
Oh, the jetty patio, that's basically the parking lot, correct?
It's no longer, it was granted as a full-time patio at last year's select board hearing. So it's no longer a parking lot.
But you are keeping the handicap spaces?
Yes, if you see the plan.
Yeah.
Right there.
And for the board's clarification, a handicap parking spot is 8 feet with a 5-foot buffer. It's a 13-foot minimum, we have 14 feet. I believe somebody spoke here recently that our handicap parking spot was not legal because it's not 16 feet. That is not the ADA code. They also went on record as saying that the parking lot was on dirt. The parking lot is, the patio and the handicap parking spot is on compacted crush and run, which is absolutely in the code as ADA compliant. So the person that was speaking did not know the code, but was allowed to speak.
We got your letter, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Just want to be clear.
Yeah. Anything from the board further?
I was at the select board meeting, last select board meeting, I believe. Someone spoke, the gentleman that was here last time for this. And the select board asked that we consider continuing this until they review their policy. I don't know if Bob can.
Yeah, but Bob, this is site plan approval it has.
It's not about patio space.
This has nothing to do with their decision, right? I mean, Bob?
Yeah.
Bob,
All we heard is me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The select board granted approval for that patio to be used under a change in the law that was effective in April of 2024. It was a change to 48, Section 3B, which allowed the select board to authorize outdoor table service in areas of a property, provided they adopted a process that authorizes that to be approved. They adopted a process that approved this area for the jetty. What happened at the select board meeting is there was a gentleman there who is a butter. I've met him before. Seems like a nice fellow. He's aggrieved by all that's gone on, and I think he's impacted by the noise. And I think he made the pitch to the select board like he did to the CBA. I think it might have even been the same pitch, that they need to reconsider it. And I think the select board wanted to talk about it a little bit more to determine whether the noise impacts were real or not. So that may or may not occur. And I agree with JJ that that's what the select board said. Select board said, we'd like to look at this a little bit further, and they may review whether those complaints are valid and then decide whether or not to allow him to continue to have that outdoor table service. I don't think they know whether they're going to do anything at this particular point. So if you were to proceed, and if you did proceed, then it's possible that select board could still change the outdoor table service if they were convinced otherwise. But it may also make sense, if you all consider it that way, to wait and let them wait a reasonable period of time, because I don't think Mr. Bond and Mrs. Vaughn should wait forever to see whether the select board going to reconsider any of their decisions.
If we approve their site plan approval, and the select board doesn't do anything, then they proceed as planned. But if we approve it and they decide to overturn or change their rule, then isn't ours voided out anyway?
No, because we're site plan approval, so what we're doing is we're approving this site for him, but it's up to him if he proceeds. He still has 14 days for the decision and 20 days for the appeal period, which is a month. Then it would be up to him.
The issue for you all is that what the select board did allowed him to eliminate some parking requirements that he has on site. And, and this was happening all across the Commonwealth, because a lot of people were looking to use outdoor parking spaces and sidewalks during COVID, and this rule became a permanent rule last year. So, you do have independent authority. You can approve what he's specifically asking for or not. The select board can decide whether or not to allow him to continue to have the outdoor table service, and then it is what it is. So.
Well, they didn't send anything to us in writing, but.
Could I interject?
I'm keen on letting the zoning board of appeals do zoning board of appeals work, and let the board of selectmen do board of selectmen work. I don't think they want us going to their meetings and doing their job, and we should do our job when an application's in front of us. Same thing with calling on wetlands and designing septic systems. Each board has their own jurisdiction. This is in front of us. I think we ought to decide based on what's been submitted.
Brian, I would ordinarily agree with you, Brian, 100%. But the law got a little bit murkier last year when the state zoning law was changed to empower select board to authorize outdoor seating regardless of what any other local or state bylaw or regulation said. So they are in the zoning business now as a result of that change for outdoor table service.
Thank you, Bob, and I appreciate that. And outdoor table service is not in front of us right now. What is in front of us is the special permit to redesign the parking lot. Or site plan approval, sorry. I stand corrected.
Could I clarify one last thing?
Thank you, Bob.
Please. One further comment on that is the jetty applied for outdoor dining in 2018, well before COVID. The jetty was granted outdoor dining in 2022. Neil Duffy sued the jetty in the town of Marshfield. That got resolved in 2024. Neil Duffy lost, the town of Marshfield won. The jetty paid over $45,000 in legal fees to get the outdoor dining approved. There was a representative of Marshfield legal team at most of those meetings. The taxpayer dollars have been wasted fighting Neil Duffy and proving him wrong already. I don't think the taxpayers want to do that again.
Thank you.
I mean, is it normal for the select board to change their mind on what they've already decided?
I'm not getting into that.
Well, I mean, I don't think we should postpone it. I think we should just go with what we have
I
in
mean,
front of us.
we did the same thing with the cannabis thing, where
I mean, but this, our decision doesn't
It's site
affect
plan,
anything that
nothing
they
to do with
do.
them.
It's your choice to move, like, it's still 34 days, at least from now, that you will get this decision. So that gives them a month. And if they decide what they're doing, then you could just decide you're not going to move forward with this.
And again, we could do that, and we're not in a rush, but Brant Rock is in a downward spiral. Currently, these Jersey barriers are adding to the blight of Brant Rock. We'd like to make it better. We don't want our customers coming in and sitting behind Jersey barriers. It looks terrible. We're looking at anchors and seagrass and nautical features. I don't understand the holdup, other than it took a long time to get the design done and acquire some of these assets to put there. And to break, to break asphalt in a flood zone requires 6 months of preparation.
Let's see if anyone's in the audience who wants to speak to this.
I had a great time there after the road race, I'll tell you.
Name and address for the record.
I didn't notice it.
Scott Dixon, 82 Ocean Street. I'm a resident of Brant Rock. I'm also the president of the local neighborhood association called the Original Brant Rock Village Association, and I'm here to support the Jetty's request. The neighborhood is overwhelmingly in support of improving the streetscape down there, working very hard with the property owners all along the Esplanade to improve it. Here we have a property owner that stepped forward and is investing in the property and wants to make it look better. The neighborhood loves the outdoor dining. It brings livelihood and energy to the neighborhood, which Brant Rock desperately needs. I know there's a gentleman that's in a butter that has an issue, but please don't think that that is representative of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is overwhelmingly in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this? Anyone from the audience, the online audience want to speak on this? So Bob, if we decide on this tonight, it doesn't, I mean, we don't, Nancy, do we have anything in writing from the select board?
Ryan, I have a couple comments.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is that we just haven't had like an actual surveyed site plan for this property in quite a while, not since the 2019 or whatever approval was that got appealed and then went through that lawsuit that Mr. Vaughn was talking about that got resolved last year. It got resolved last year, but it was moot because the select board issued the outdoor seating expansion. But we still don't have any kind of site plan, like, and I know that all this stuff is kind of being proposed. I think it's being proposed, some of it, on property that's not actually theirs, you know? The buoy, that kind of stuff. And I get that the buoy weighs a lot, but buoys are meant to float. And if it floods down there, that has serious potential to be floating debris that can bang into other things. I also see there's like a keg down there, like, I get the look of it, but I just think there needs to be some sort of consideration. Also, if we're gonna talk about handicap accessibility, I think a new site plan showing exactly the size and location of the space and the route that they're going to use to get into the jetty needs to be fully accessible if you're gonna actually talk about handicap accessibility on this place, which it was already handicap accessible. So it has to remain handicap accessible. So I have to have something that shows me that that route to get in there is. And on this landscaping plan, it shows like these granite slabs with compact crush and run gravel. That's not an accessible surface. And so that's my biggest concern. I've raised it with conservation. I don't know what they decided at their last meeting, but I really think that we need an actual site plan. We need to see where these things are located, and I need to know that the route getting into the building is a handicap accessible route.
Is that something you could provide us at?
Could I answer? So, Andrew, the Merrill plan in front of us is dated maybe 2 years ago. That's certainly not ancient history. That's the landscape plan, the plan you had up a moment ago from Merrill.
It's dated July 28th of 2023. That's a stamped surveyed plan from Merrill Engineers, and the surveyor is I can't see who the surveyor is.
And I could certainly have him add the landscape plan onto that with dimensions and so forth. I also want to mention, when you and I spoke a short time ago, we had originally proposed seashells, and you instructed me to change the seashells to crush and run and level granite for the entrance, for the handicap accessibility.
I never said granite blocks in between crush and run. If anything, I've always said it has to just be an ADA. I've been very consistent saying that the surface has to be ADA compliant.
Okay, I must have
And
misunderstood.
that's why you get a site plan with a civil engineer to show that we have the grades and everything else on it. I've been very consistent in the last several years, every single time the jetty's come before any board, that we needed an updated site plan showing contours and all these different slow additions that have happened since 2020.
Would that be a problem to get that by our next meeting?
No, I think Merrill could probably do that pretty quickly.
All right, so does the board have a problem with extending to the next meeting?
No, I have a question, though. On the ADA accessibility issue with the walkway, I know the granite slabs will look nice. Is there another area where a gate could be introduced to allow for ADA?
My understanding of the ADA accessibility is that it's the closest point of entrance. So from that parking spot, we specifically left those bollards 4 feet apart, so they could actually enter right between the bollards and go straight to the front door.
Andrew, Commissioner Stewart, would that, help with the situation? Andrew?
Yeah, it's a
What's
straight,
that, JJ? I didn't hear you.
With the,
You speaking in the microphone, sorry.
oh, sorry. You can't hear me from back there? They're going to leave the bollards in that area 4 feet apart. Would it need to be delineated that that is the handicap accessible pathway?
I don't know what you mean, as far,
I'm just thinking of if they can leave their walkway the way they want to do it, can there be a separate entrance for handicap accessibility, ADA accessibility?
what do you mean separate entrance, like separate entrance onto the property or
So
something?
if it's bollards, right, there's not going to be a fence?
So the thought was that in front of the handicap parking spot, there are 3 bollards that are 4 feet apart, and that a handicapped person could actually enter right between those bollards instead of walking back around the island to the primary entrance.
Right here,
Correct.
right here, right?
so it's a straight shot to the front door from the
Right here, yeah, they go.
Exactly.
They're not
As
going.
long as you have an accessible surface, an accessible route, yeah. What I don't want you to do is get into a situation where you're making modifications that aren't handicap accessible, especially given it's a major concern in town right now. Major.
So we go across where you're,
I think Mr.
Going right
Vaughn has
across, I
heard the
think.
concerns and will address that. The landscape architect has addressed that. I mean, I, respectfully, Brian, I don't see the need to kick the can down the road. I think we have enough information in front of us to decide this tonight.
I agree.
How does the board feel?
Well, conditioned, we get that updated site plan, updated plan.
Andrew wants, yeah, but I mean, so then,
We can approve it, and he can submit a
I mean, we've done
stamped-
that plenty of times, that
Plan.
things have been submitted with, to Andrew.
Andrew, you okay with that? He's going to update the plan, and
Because it does show,
we could approve this based on you okaying the plan that he submits.
Yeah, you know how I feel about that.
I know.
I don't like when you guys approve something based on what my future decision is, because what if he submits a plan to me
Thank
that
you.
I don't approve?
Yeah,
And then I deny, and then we're right back here, and he's appealing my decision to you guys.
I'm
And
with you
you
there,
are supposed to handle accessibility and parking and access
Right.
to restaurants.
When's our
That's part
next
of it.
meeting? Is it 6:10?
Part of it.
6:10 and 6:21.
Is 6:10, how busy is it?
We only have 4 more.
All right.
But to be clear, I still have an application in for a building permit, which hasn't been approved yet. Wouldn't that be the opportunity to decide the ADA at the building permit stage, not at the,
Well, we're in site plan approval, which means we're supposed to approve a plan that was presented to us that meets whatever the standards Andrew's asking for.
you could get Merrill to have a
Just to put it
surveyor
on
Just
there.
to
put their stamp on that,
Sure.
Yeah, to me, it would just be, get the plan updated, you know what Andrew's asked for. It's 6/10, it's only a few weeks away. If you can get that to us, I think it just would make the most sense.
You're
And then we
already
can
off,
find out
so
what,
It's really not gonna slow you
No
down
worries.
much, correct?
and we can,
I already own the anchor.
a couple weeks, and then we can
Gives you
ask,
another couple of
we can
weeks for
ask the
somebody to
select
drive
board
by
whatever
with
they
a
were, because we have nothing in
fleet.
writing from them, so I think it works, so.
I personally
Is everyone
think that
okay
would be
with
the best.
extending to 6/10?
Yes.
Motion to extend the jetty to 6/10. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Pro Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Leo.
Mike Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
And if you could get that over to Andrew, that'd be great.
I will take care of it ASAP.
All right, the only thing we have left, everything's done, right, Nancy?
We have an update on the modeling.
I'm going to do that right now. So the board discussion on the modeling work, environmental partners, Bridle Crossing. We've invited the Board of Public Works and the Select Board to the June 24th meeting. So just waiting to hear from them. All right?
Sounds good.
Motion to close the,
Second.
Move to adjourn?
now move to adjourn, there's the word. All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Leo.
Mike Brothers, aye.